The idea first came to me on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in my cramped cubicle at the private investigation firm where I worked. My boss, a grizzled ex-cop named Reynolds, had just tossed a new case file onto my desk, a high-profile jewelry heist where the suspect was believed to be hiding in plain sight, working at an upscale women's boutique. The problem? The store only hired female employees. Reynolds had already tried sending in a female investigator, but the suspect had sniffed her out immediately. That's when it hit me. What if I went undercover as a woman? At first, the thought was absurd. I was 6 feet tall with broad shoulders, a square jaw, and a voice that had never been mistaken for feminine. But desperation breeds creativity, and if I wanted to prove myself as a detective, this was my chance. That night, I found myself standing in front of my bathroom mirror, holding a wig I'd bought from a costume shop. It was cheap, synthetic, and a shade of auburn that looked nothing like my natural hair, but it was a start. The next step was makeup. I had no idea what I was doing. My hands shook as I tried to apply foundation, only to end up with streaks that made me look like a poorly painted mannequin. Eyeliner was a disaster. I poked myself in the eye twice before giving up. Lipstick smeared outside my lips like a child's crayon drawing. Frustrated, I wiped it all off and started researching. Hours of YouTube tutorials later, I had a basic understanding of contouring, blending, and how to make my features appear softer. Clothing was another challenge. I didn't own anything feminine, and shopping for women's clothes as a man was an exercise in awkwardness. I opted for online shopping, ordering a conservative blouse, a pencil skirt, and a pair of low heels. When the package arrived, I locked myself in my apartment and tried everything on. The skirt felt restrictive, the blouse too delicate, and the heels, oh God, the heels, were a torture device disguised as footwear. But when I looked in the mirror, something strange happened. I didn't just see a man in a wig and makeup. I saw someone else. Someone intriguing. The real test came when I had to leave my apartment. My heart pounded as I stepped outside, half expecting laughter or stares. But the city was too busy to care. A few people glanced my way, but no one pointed or sneered. I walked into the boutique where the suspect worked, my pulse racing as the manager greeted me with a polite smile. My voice was the biggest hurdle. I'd practiced speaking in a higher register, but it still sounded forced. Still, she didn't seem suspicious. Over the next few days, I settled into the role. The other employees taught me how to fold scarves, recommend perfumes, and style mannequins. I learned how to walk in heels without wobbling, how to tuck my hair behind my ear in a way that felt natural. And then there was the suspect, Lena, a quiet but sharp-eyed woman who always seemed to be watching me. I made sure to keep my distance, observing her routines, looking for any sign that she was involved in the heist. But the longer I stayed undercover, the more complicated things became. I started enjoying the little things. The way the silk blouse felt against my skin, the confidence that came with a perfectly applied lipstick, the unexpected kindness of strangers who held doors open for me. It wasn't just a disguise anymore. It was liberating. Then one evening, Lena pulled me aside. My stomach dropped. Had she figured me out? But instead of accusing me, she handed me a small jewelry box. Inside was a stolen diamond necklace, one of the pieces from the heist. She smirked and said nothing, waiting for my reaction. In that moment, I realized two things. First, she knew exactly who I was, and second, she didn't care.
She was testing me.
I played along, pretending to be a fellow thief, and over the next few days, she revealed bits of the operation. I gathered enough evidence to bring her in, but when the day came to make the arrest, I hesitated. Not because of the case, but because I didn't want to stop being her, the woman I'd become. In the end, I did my job. Lena was arrested, the jewelry recovered, and Reynolds clapped me on the back, calling me a natural. But as I removed the wig and wiped off the makeup that night, I felt a strange sense of loss. A week later, I found myself back in front of the mirror, this time with better makeup, a nicer wig, and a dress I'd bought for myself. Not for a case, but for me. Because somewhere between the lies and the disguises, I'd found a truth I couldn't ignore. And that was just the beginning. The days after the case closed felt hollow. I returned to my usual routine, ill-fitting suits, gruff conversations with informants, the stale coffee in the office break room. But something was different. I caught myself missing the weight of the wig on my scalp, the sway of the skirt around my legs, the way the world treated me when I moved through it as her. I told myself it was just the thrill of undercover work, the adrenaline of deception. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. One evening, after another mind-numbing day of surveillance on a cheating spouse case, I found myself standing in front of my closet. The wig was still there, draped over the back of a chair like a discarded second skin. I picked it up, running my fingers through the synthetic strands. Before I could second-guess myself, I was back in front of the mirror, smoothing foundation over my stubble, darkening my lashes with mascara, painting my lips a deep, velvety red. This time, there was no mission, no suspect to track. Just me. I slipped into the dress I'd bought, a sleek black number with a neckline that framed my collarbones in a way that made my breath catch. The heels were easier now, my balance steadier. I turned sideways, studying my reflection. The padding in the bra gave me curves, the shapewear smoothed out my silhouette, and the makeup made my eyes look bigger, my lips fuller, my jaw softer. I looked like a woman, and I liked it. That realization sent a jolt through me. This wasn't just about the case anymore. This wasn't just about pretending. I needed to know if I could pass, really pass, without the safety net of an investigation. So I did something reckless. I left the apartment. The night air was cool against my bare arms as I walked down the sidewalk, my heels clicking against the pavement. Every glance from a passerby made my pulse spike. Was that curiosity in their eyes? Recognition? Disapproval? But no one stopped me. No one laughed. A man in a suit even held the door open for me at the corner cafe, murmuring, "After you, miss." Miss. The word sent a shiver down my spine. I ordered a coffee, keeping my voice light, feminine. The barista smiled, handing me the cup with a casual, "Here you go, hon." No hesitation. No suspicion. Just acceptance. I sat by the window, sipping my drink, watching the world go by. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as the gruff detective, not as the awkward guy who never quite fit in, but as someone entirely new. Someone right. When I got home, I didn't immediately wash off the makeup. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my reflection in the vanity mirror. Who was I, really? A man who enjoyed dressing up? A woman trapped in the wrong body? Something in between? I didn't have the answers. But for the first time, I wanted to find them. The next morning, I called in sick to work and went to a proper beauty store. No more cheap wigs or drugstore makeup. I needed the real thing. The consultant, a kind-eyed woman named Marisol, didn't bat an eye at my nervous explanations. She showed me how to choose the right foundation shade, how to shape my brows, how to apply false lashes without gluing my eyelids together. "You've got great bone structure," she said, tilting my chin up with her fingers. "With the right contouring, you could look stunning." I bought everything she recommended. Over the next few weeks, I became a student of femininity. I practiced walking in heels until my ankles ached. I learned how to tuck safely, how to tuck my shirt just right to create the illusion of hips. I experimented with different wigs, long and flowing, short and sassy, until I found one that felt like me. And then, one evening, I did something even more reckless than before. I went to a bar. Not just any bar, a queer-friendly lounge where the air hummed with energy, where glitter and laughter spilled from every corner. I wore a deep green dress that hugged my padded curves, my hair cascading in loose waves over my shoulders. My nails were painted wine red, my lips to match. No one gave me a second glance. No, that's not true. Some people glanced. A few even smiled. A woman at the bar complimented my eyeliner. A man in a leather jacket bought me a drink, his fingers brushing mine as he handed me the glass. I should have been nervous, but instead I felt free. I danced. I laughed. I let myself exist in this skin without questioning, without overthinking. And when a gorgeous brunette leaned in and whispered, "You're beautiful," I believed her. It wasn't until the next morning, nursing a slight hangover and carefully removing my makeup, that the fear crept in. What was I doing? This wasn't just a hobby anymore. This was my life. Could I really keep living like this? The answer came sooner than I expected. Reynolds called me into his office that Monday, tossing a new case file onto the desk. Another undercover job. Another chance to prove myself. But this time, the suspect was hiding in a construction crew. A men's crew. I stared at the file, my stomach twisting. Going back to that. The rough voices, the boxy clothes, the way the world expected me to be hard, unfeeling, it felt impossible now. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. You up for it? I took a deep breath. And for the first time, I said no. His surprise was almost comical. Since when do you turn down field work? Since I realized I don't want to be a man anymore. I didn't say that, of course.
Not yet.
But the truth was there, heavy in my chest, waiting to be spoken. That night, I stood in front of the mirror again. But this time, I wasn't putting on a disguise. I was meeting her, and I never wanted to let her go. The weeks after turning down Reynolds' offer were a blur of self-discovery and quiet rebellion. I started small, wearing clear nail polish to work, swapping my boxer briefs for silky panties beneath my slacks, letting my hair grow out just enough to brush against my collar. Tiny acts of defiance, invisible to everyone but me. But it wasn't enough. I needed to know if this was just a fantasy or something deeper, so I did what any good detective would. I researched. Late nights were spent scrolling through forums, reading about gender dysphoria, watching transition timelines on YouTube with a lump in my throat. The stories resonated in a way that terrified me. The relief in their eyes when they talked about finally seeing themselves in the mirror. The way they described the suffocating weight of pretending to be someone they weren't. It was like reading my own diary. One rainy afternoon, I found myself sitting in a therapist's office, my knees pressed together in a skirt I'd never dared to wear outside my apartment. Dr. Chin was warm, unflinching, her questions gentle but precise. When you imagine your future, she asked, who do you see? I closed my eyes, and for the first time I let myself answer honestly. Coming out to Reynolds was harder than any undercover operation. I wore my best suit, my hands clammy as I sat across from him, the words sticking in my throat. I'm transgender. Silence. Then, to my shock, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Christ, I thought you were gonna quit. A beat. You're still one of my best investigators. Just maybe no more deep cover as a biker for a while, huh? I laughed so hard I cried. The first dose of estrogen was a tiny pill, but swallowing it felt like jumping off a cliff. The changes came slowly, softer skin, the faintest swell of breasts, emotions that hit like tidal waves. I started wearing subtle makeup to work, trading my ties for blouses that draped just right. My colleagues adjusted with surprising ease, though Jenkins from accounting still occasionally slipped up with a, hey, man, shit, sorry, hey, Sam. But the real test was my family. My sister, predictably, hugged me tight and said, about damn time. Apparently, my childhood obsession with her Barbies had been a clue. My parents were harder. There were tears, strained silences, a what did we do wrong? That stung more than I expected. But then, one Sunday, my mom showed up at my door with a bag from her favorite boutique. Inside was a sundress, butter yellow and delicate. I thought it would suit you, she murmured, her eyes glistening.
I wore it to dinner that night.
A year later, I stood in front of the mirror in a bridesmaid's dress, adjusting the strap as my sister grinned behind me. You clean up nice, she teased, tucking a loose curl behind my ear. Outside, the wedding guests were arriving. Among them was Lena, out on parole, surprisingly, and now running a legit vintage jewelry shop. She'd sent me a note after seeing my transition announcement online. Knew you were too pretty to be a cop. I smoothed the skirt, took a deep breath. No wig this time. No padding. Just me, Sam, the woman I'd always been. And as the music swelled, I stepped into the light, no longer undercover, but finally, gloriously seen. Life had a funny way of circling back on itself. 5 years after my first fumbling attempts at eyeliner, I found myself walking into the same upscale boutique where it all began. Only this time, I wasn't wearing a disguise. The bell above the door chimed, and the manager, now silver-haired but just as sharp-eyed, looked up from the register. For a heartbeat, there was no recognition. Then her penciled brows shot up. "Oh my God, Sam." Lena emerged from the stockroom, her smirk as familiar as ever. "Well, look what the cat dragged in. You here to arrest me again, detective?" I laughed, running a hand through my now shoulder-length hair. "All mine. No wigs needed anymore." "Actually," I said, holding up a business card, "I'm here about the security consultant position." The boutique became my first real client after I left the force. Turns out, knowing how thieves think makes you damn good at stopping them. My little firm specialized in retail security, with a side gig advising LGBTQ+ businesses on safety without discrimination. Some days I missed the chase, the adrenaline of a stakeout, the puzzle of a good case. But then I'd catch my reflection in a store window, a woman in a tailored blazer, her hair swept into a messy bun, a smear of lipstick on her coffee cup. And I'd remember the most important case I'd ever solved. On my 30th birthday, I stood barefaced in my bathroom, tracing the faint laugh lines around my eyes. The hormones had softened my features, but the real change was in the way I held myself. No more hunching to hide my height, no more lowering my voice out of habit. My girlfriend's arms slipped around my waist, her chin resting on my shoulder. "Happy birthday, beautiful," she murmured against my neck. Outside, our friends were arriving for the party. My parents would be there. Dad still awkward but trying, Mom proudly showing off phone pics of her girls to anyone who'd look. Reynolds was coming too, likely with some horrendous retirement community joke. I turned in Lisa's arms, kissing her properly. "Let's go be fabulous," I whispered. Later, as twilight painted the sky peach and gold, I found myself alone for a moment on the balcony. The sounds of laughter and clinking glasses spilled through the open door behind me. From my pocket, I pulled out an old photo. Me in that first terrible wig, my makeup a clownish mess, but my smile brighter than it had been in years. "You made it," I told her softly. And as the stars blinked awake overhead, I knew. The greatest undercover operation of my life hadn't been about becoming someone else. It had been about coming home. Thank you so much for watching till now. It means the world to have you here. This community is all about empowering each other and celebrating the incredible journeys of everyone on their path to living authentically. If you're ever feeling lost or alone, remember you have a whole family here for you. Hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button. And let's keep inspiring each other, sending you all the love and strength in the world. Until next time, live your life by your rules.